She saw him cheating in their own honeymoon suite. The room meant for vows turned into a silent crime scene. From that moment, love collapsed, and a truth she could never unsee began to hunt them all. I met Sophia 2 years ago while working on an interior renovation project for an old house on the outskirts of New York City. Back then, I was just a 24-year-old handyman, fresh out of trade school, specializing in electrical wiring and basic carpentry. She was the client, a 35-year-old woman who owned a small bakery in a nearby town. The job was straightforward: gutting the kitchen, installing new fixtures, and giving the place a modern facelift. At first, it was all business. I'd show up early with my tools, measure walls, and get to work while she hovered nearby, pointing out details like where she wanted the outlets or how the lighting should hit the countertops. But as the weeks dragged on, something shifted. It wasn't anything dramatic. No sparks flying or stolen glances that screamed romance. It was subtler. I'd catch her staring out the window during breaks, her eyes distant, like she was carrying a weight I couldn't see. She had this quiet strength about her, the kind that came from having been through hell and back. I learned bits and pieces over coffee runs. She'd been divorced once before, poured everything into her bakery to rebuild her life, and had a way of making even the roughest days feel manageable with a simple smile or a shared laugh. She was older than me by nearly a decade, more experienced in every way, poised, independent, with a warmth that drew people in without trying. I started noticing the little things. She liked her herbal tea without sugar, always carried an old leather notebook filled with scribbled recipes, and had a habit of forgetting her keys in her coat pocket. I'd find them and hand them over with a grin, and she'd thank me with that soft laugh that made my chest tighten. I told myself it was nothing, just admiration for a strong woman. But deep down, I knew it was more. I hid it for a full year after the project ended. We'd stayed in loose touch, occasional texts about home maintenance tips or her recommending a good spot for lunch. I never pushed, never crossed that line. Being near her, even peripherally, felt like enough. I convinced myself that silence was safer than risking rejection, especially with the age gap hanging between us like an unspoken barrier. Then, out of nowhere, she called me one afternoon. Her voice was light, almost excited. "Alex, I wanted to let you know, I'm getting married next month. It's a small ceremony, nothing fancy, but I'd love for you to be there. You've been such a good friend through everything." I froze, the phone pressed to my ear as I stood in my cramped apartment in Brooklyn. Married? The word hit like a punch to the gut. I forced a laugh, congratulated her, told her how happy I was for her. "Of course I'll be there," I said, my voice steady even as my heart cracked. But when the call ended, I sank onto the edge of my bed staring at the wall. The emptiness swallowed me whole. All those quiet moments, the unspoken feelings I'd buried, they surged up, choking me. I paced to the balcony, the evening wind biting at my face, and whispered to myself, "So, that's it." No chance to even tell her how I felt. The wedding day came faster than I wanted. I couldn't bring myself to go. The thought of watching her walk down the aisle smiling at someone else was too much. I sent a text. "Sorry, can't make it. Emergency on a job site. Congrats again, wish you all the happiness." Short, polite, a lie wrapped in courtesy. She replied with a simple, "Thanks, understand. Take care." And that was it. Or so I thought. That night, I holed up in my apartment, the walls closing in. I cracked open a bottle of cheap whiskey, pouring glass after glass, trying to drown the images in my head. Her in a white dress, laughing with her new husband, building a life I'd never be part of. The alcohol burned, but it didn't erase the ache. I slumped on the couch, head in my hands, fighting back tears. Why her? Why now? I'd waited too long, and now it was over. Hours blurred into the night. My phone buzzed on the coffee table, pulling me from the haze. It was after midnight. Sophia's number. My heart raced. "Why was she calling?" I answered, my voice rough from the drinks and the unshed tears. "Hello?" There was a pause, then her voice, trembling and broken. I was betrayed. On our wedding night." The word slammed into me like a freight train. Betrayed? On her wedding night? I sat up straight, the room spinning slightly. "What? Sophia, what happened?" She broke down, sobs choking her words. I walked into the room, and he was there with another woman, someone I don't even know. How could he? I trusted him. I thought this time it was right. Her pain echoed through the line, raw and desperate. I gripped the phone, my mind reeling. The woman I'd admired for her strength was shattering, and all I could do was listen, my own heart breaking for her. Why me? Why call me now, in her lowest moment? Part of me ached because she was hurting, but another part twisted in bitterness. I was the one she turned to only when no one else was left. I froze, the phone still clutched in my hand, her words echoing like a nightmare I couldn't wake from. Betrayed? On our wedding night? It didn't make sense. Sophia, the woman who always kept her cool, who could diffuse any tense situation on the job site with a calm word or a steady gaze, was the one breaking down now, her voice shattered by sobs. I'd never seen or heard her like this. She was always the one smiling through the chaos, listening to everyone's complaints without judgment, even back on that renovation project where we'd met. If I was new and fumbling with wiring, she'd brew me a coffee or shield me from the sun with her jacket sleeve while we worked outside. I thought she was unbreakable, the kind of person who held everyone else together. But now her cries cut through the line, raw and unrelenting. My chest tightened, a mix of shock and helplessness washing over me. I paced the room, my mind racing. Sophia, where are you? I asked, my voice trembling. I was terrified. What if she was spiraling? What if she'd had too much to drink or was standing somewhere dangerous, alone in the dark? The fear gripped me like ice. She whispered the name of a beach near Long Island, her voice barely audible over the sobs. I didn't ask for details, didn't hesitate. I grabbed my keys, still in my shorts and t-shirt from earlier, my feet shoving into sneakers as my hands shook, unlocking the door. I bolted to my truck, the engine roaring to life as I peeled out into the night. I'd never driven like that before, swerving into lanes, blowing through red lights, the speedometer climbing higher than it should. I didn't care about tickets or accidents. All I knew was I had to get to her, now. The road blurred under the headlights, my mind flooding with memories as I gripped the wheel. 2 years ago on that job site, she'd opened up in quiet moments. Over lunch breaks, she'd shared how her first marriage ended badly. Her ex was an alcoholic, always disappearing for days, leaving her waiting by the door like a ghost. She'd laugh it off lightly, but I could see the pain in her eyes. I was just a kid then, orphaned young after my dad died, in a construction accident, scraping by on odd jobs to make ends meet. Living alone in my tiny Brooklyn apartment, no family to fall back on. But Sophia treated me like I mattered. She'd share homemade pastries from her bakery, ask about my day, my dreams of maybe starting my own repair business one day. We'd bonded over those small talks. Her strength inspired me, made me feel less alone in the world. I admired her resilience, the way she rebuilt her life brick by brick after her divorce. That's when my feelings started, quiet at first, growing into something I couldn't ignore. What if I was too late? The questions hammered in my head as miles flew by. Had she drunk too much? Was someone with her? Did she have pills or something worse? If I didn't make it in time? I shoved the thought away, flooring the gas pedal harder. The salty sea air hit me first as I pulled into the parking lot, the wind whipping through the open window. I killed the engine and sprinted toward the shore, my heart pounding like a drum. The beach was dark, waves crashing in rhythm, the smell of salt sharp in my nose. Then I saw her, from a distance, her silhouette staggering along the water's edge, a glass bottle dangling from her hand. My stomach dropped. "Sophia!" I shouted, my voice cracking with fear and desperation. "What are you doing?" I ran full speed, sand kicking up behind me, reaching her in seconds. I grabbed her arm, pulling her close, my body trembling. My chest heaved, terror flooding me. She could have wandered into the water, slipped away in the dark. She turned, eyes wide but clearer than I'd feared. I was just walking," she said, surprised. "What's wrong with you?" I scanned her face, her posture, making sure she wasn't hurt or too far gone. Relief crashed over me like the waves, my legs buckling. I dropped to the sand, breathing hard, the adrenaline draining out. She sat beside me, the bottle set aside. We sat in silence for minutes, the ocean's roar filling the void, like it was tapping into my soul. Then softly she spoke. I walked into the room and saw him with her. Some woman I don't even know. I turned to her, my heart twisting. When I got back from the reception, he was in bed with her. Right there in our honeymoon suite. I can't get it out of my head. Her voice was hollow now, the sobs gone, replaced by a numb emptiness. The words cut deep like a slow knife. I couldn't imagine her pain, the betrayal at the moment that should have been pure joy. My fists clenched in the sand, anger boiling for the man who'd done this to her. But I didn't speak. I wouldn't interrupt the fragile peace she needed. We just sat there staring at the sea, the cold wind biting but somehow warming my heart. Because at least now she wasn't alone in the dark anymore. After she finished telling me everything, I saw a shift in her eyes. The panic was gone. The tears dried up. What remained was a quiet stillness, like a woman who'd gathered up all her broken pieces and was piecing herself back together, one breath at a time. I let out a long sigh of relief, my shoulders finally relaxing after hours of tension. The sea wind was picking up, whipping across the beach with a chill that cut right through me. I started shivering, pulling my knees up to my chest, hugging them tight to trap whatever warmth I had left. My thin t-shirt and shorts were no match for the night air. I hadn't even thought to grab a jacket in my rush. Sophia turned to me, her gaze flicking over my huddled form. A hint of surprise crossed her face, then she let out a small, choked laugh. "Why are you dressed like that? It's freezing out here. Shorts and a t-shirt?" I scratched my head, teeth chattering as I forced a grin. "Blame yourself. You called and I just ran out the door, didn't even think." She covered her mouth with her hand, the laugh turning genuine, the first real one I'd heard all night. "You're such an idiot. But thank you for coming." "Don't thank me," I said, my voice still shaky from the cold and the leftover adrenaline. "I was scared out of my mind. I thought you might—" I trailed off, not wanting to voice the worst fears that had raced through my head on the drive over. She didn't let me finish. She shook her head gently, her tone dropping to something softer, more grounded. "No, I'd never do something stupid like that. I just needed someone there." I looked at her then, really looked. This woman, older than me, wiser, scarred by betrayals that would have crushed most people, seemed so fragile under the moonlight, like she was borrowing strength from the stars just to keep herself upright. We sat like that for what felt like forever, side by side on the sand, the waves providing a steady rhythm that almost felt like a heartbeat. No more tears. No more shattering revelations. Just random stories, the kind that spill out when there's nothing left to hide. I told her about the times I'd gotten shocked while wiring lights, the jolt running up my arm like fire, or the day I smashed my finger with a hammer and had to bite back screams on the job. She shared bits from her childhood, hiding bad report cards in her dresser drawer, waiting for her parents to notice but hoping they wouldn't. We laughed through chattering teeth, inching closer for warmth without really thinking about it, our shoulders brushing now and then. By the time the sky started lightening, she yawned, stretching a little, and I was shaking like a leaf from the all-nighter in the cold. No sleep, no coat, just raw exhaustion settling in. I stood up, brushing sand off my legs, and glanced at her. "I should head back. Boss'll kill me if I no-show tomorrow." She nodded, her voice hoarse from the night. "Drive safe. If you're tired, pull over and rest for a bit before you keep going." I smiled, gave a quick nod, and turned to walk away. But when I got to my truck, I sat there for a few minutes, keys in the ignition but engine off. My heart felt heavy, squeezed tight in my chest. I didn't want to leave, not because I was still worried she'd fall apart, the immediate crisis was over, but because, what if this was just a fleeting moment? A blip in the night born from desperation that would vanish come morning? As I finally started the engine and pulled away, the fear gnawed at me. By the time I got back to the city, would everything snap back to normal? Me, a young guy scraping by on handyman gigs, nothing to offer but my time and a toolbox. Her, a woman who'd been through too much, too worn out to dive into anything new. The differences between us felt bigger than ever. The age gap, her life full of responsibilities with the bakery, my simple existence bouncing from job to job. I'd always known it, but sitting there on the beach had made it real. What we'd shared felt profound, but fragile, like it could dissolve under the harsh light of day. And even though I didn't want to admit it, deep down I knew. Whatever magic the night had brought, it might not survive the sunrise. A few weeks after that night on the beach, I convinced myself that was the end of it. We'd shared this raw, intense moment, but life had a way of pulling people apart. I threw myself back into work, climbing ladders to install wiring in old apartments, fixing leaky roofs on suburban homes, the kind of manual labor that kept my hands busy and my mind numb. Sophia vanished from social media, no updates, no stories. She didn't text or call. I figured she needed space, time to heal on her own terms. And honestly, what right did I have to insert myself into her life? I was just the young handyman she'd hired once. Our paths had crossed by chance, and now they'd diverged. It hurt, but I told myself it was for the best. Until one afternoon, midway through hanging a light fixture in a small hotel suite on the edge of the city, I was balanced on a stepladder, screwdriver in hand, when my phone buzzed in my pocket. I nearly dropped the bulb as I fumbled to answer. It was her. "Hello, Sophia?" Her voice was low and firm, no trace of the fragility from that night. "I need you to come with me to court tomorrow. I'm filing for divorce." I went still, the ladder creaking under me. Divorce? The word hung there, heavy and final. My mind blanked for a second, then I stammered out, Yeah, I'm free tomorrow." She thanked me softly and hung up. The dial tone buzzed in my ear, and only then did it hit me. Why had I agreed so quickly? No questions, no hesitation, just yes. I climbed down the ladder, staring at my phone like it held some secret. Why me? Not a close friend, not her lawyer, not a family member. Me. A guy 10 years younger, scraping by on odd jobs, with calluses on his hands and not much else to show for it? That night, I tossed and turned in my bed, the sheets twisting around me. Questions piled up like storm clouds. Why call the kid from the renovation crew? Was I just convenient, someone safe who wouldn't judge? Or was there more to it? A strange excitement crept in amid the doubt, not fear but anticipation. Like something was shifting, and I was on the edge of it. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. I dug out the only button-up shirt I owned that wasn't wrinkled, ironed it as best I could, and stared at myself in the mirror. I chuckled bitterly. Look at you, dressing up like you're heading to your own wedding, not witnessing a divorce. But I couldn't shake the nerves. I drove to the courthouse in Lower Manhattan, arriving right on time. She was already there, waiting by the entrance, looking as composed as ever in a simple blouse and slacks. But something was different. Her eyes held a lightness I hadn't seen before, like a weight had lifted. The hearing was quick, almost clinical. Sophia presented her evidence. Photos, messages, the undeniable proof of his infidelity right there in the honeymoon suite, just as she'd described to me on the beach. The judge didn't blink, delivering the verdict in a monotone. She got 60% of the assets. He kept 40%. No alimony, no drawn-out battles, just done. I watched her from the back of the room, not focusing on the money but on her. For the first time, she looked truly free, unburdened by the chains she'd been dragging for so long. No more pretending, no more holding together something that had shattered. Afterward, as we walked out into the crisp morning air, she turned to me with a small smile. "Come grab a bite with me? Consider it a celebration of me graduating from one big mistake." We ended up at a little diner nearby, the kind with vinyl booths and bottomless coffee. She ordered 2 beers despite the early hour, clinking her bottle against mine. "To fresh starts," she said. I grinned, trying to keep it light. "Now I've got a millionaire big sister on my hands." She burst out laughing, swatting my arm playfully. "Millionaire, please. And if you don't pick up when I call, forget about any inheritance." I winced, forcing a smile. "Wouldn't dream of it." We laughed together, the sound echoing in the busy diner, but inside, a quiet peace settled over me. For the first time that day, I understood. Today, she didn't belong to anyone anymore. And if she chose, I could be the first person she picked, not out of obligation or contract, but out of real trust. The reversal hit me hard, from thinking we'd never speak again to sitting here, sharing this milestone. It wasn't just her healing, it felt like the start of something for us too. I confessed bits of my own past over the meal, growing up without a dad, the loneliness of building a life from scratch. She listened, her hand brushing mine once, and for a moment the age gap, the doubts, all faded. We were just two people starting to mend. From that celebratory meal onward, Sophia and I started texting more regularly. It wasn't anything earth-shattering, no grand declarations or deep confessions, just simple, everyday exchanges that slipped into our routines like they belong there. "What are you eating for lunch?" she'd ask. "It's chilly today, don't forget a jacket," I'd reply. "That coffee shop we liked just opened a new spot near your place." Those little messages, steady and unassuming, became a habit, a quiet thread pulling us closer without us even noticing. We made it a point to meet up every weekend, always at the same cozy diner in Queens, the one with the worn booths and the big windows overlooking the bustling street. We'd order our usuals: black coffee for me, herbal tea for her, no sugar. We'd claim that table by the window, where the sunlight filtered in just right, casting warm patterns on the formica surface. I'd talk about my latest jobs, the frustrating electrical short in an old brownstone that took all day to trace, or the satisfaction of finishing a kitchen remodel ahead of schedule. She'd share updates from her bakery, a rush order for handmade pastries from a friend's party, or experimenting with a new recipe that turned out better than expected. Sometimes we didn't say much at all. We'd just sit there, sipping in comfortable silence, listening to the soft clink of spoons stirring against ceramic mugs, the hum of conversations around us blending into white noise. One afternoon, as we watched the foot traffic outside, she leaned back in her seat and said, "I don't know why, but I always feel so at ease talking to you, like I don't have to try so hard." I smiled gently, stirring my coffee. "That's because I don't expect anything from you." And it was true. I didn't. All I wanted was to be there, to see her smile genuinely, without the weight of the world forcing it. To wake up each morning and check my phone, hoping for that one message waiting, a small reminder that I was on her mind. I still loved her, in that quiet, patient way I'd fallen into long ago. No demands, no timelines, but she didn't know the full depth of it yet. To her, I was still just a friend, maybe even a little brother figure, the reliable guy who'd shown up in her crisis. And strangely, I wasn't sad about it. I didn't push or pine in frustration, because I believed that real feelings didn't need to be rushed. Some people spend their whole lives searching for someone who makes them want to stick around through the good and the bad. Me, I'd already found her. I told myself it would happen soon enough. One day, when her heart had fully settled, when the breeze was gentle and the sun warm enough to chase away the last shadows of doubt, I'd say it then. "Sophia, I don't want to be just friends anymore. I want to be the one who sits with you in silence when you're sad, the first person you call when something good happens. I want to be the man you can lean on, not because you're weak, but because I'm willing to stay no matter what." But not today. Today I just finished my coffee in quiet contentment, watching her smile across the table, and feeling a warmth in my chest, knowing we were heading in the right direction.